Hi everybody. Today we're going to take some time to talk about how to structure an argument essay. Let's begin by talking about what an argument essay is. So in an argument, you are going to choose a debatable topic, meaning there's more than one point of view on this issue. You're going to choose one side of that issue, and you're going to argue it using evidence. So you're going to do research for this paper. You're going to need to have facts, statistics, reliable authority figures who support what you have to say. You're going to use logic to prove your point. So you're going to argue one side of an issue. You may have been asked in the past to write a persuasive essay, and you may be wondering, what's the difference between an argument essay and a persuasive essay? Well, in an argument essay, you will have a section of your paper where you examine the other side of the issue. You examine what the opposing point of view has to say, and you're going to use logic and reason and facts to try to dispute what they have to say. The tone of an argument essay may also sometimes be a little stronger than a persuasive essay. In a persuasive essay, you may remember that near the closing, you would have had a call to action. You would have been trying to convince people to see your point of view and do something. So that's a typical part of a persuasive paper that you won't see in your argument paper. Let's talk about the steps to writing your paper. Step 1, you're going to choose that debatable topic, and you're going to decide which side of the issue you will argue. So in this module, we are reading about and writing about education. So a debatable topic relating to education might be to look at how charter schools in Arizona are funded. One might choose to argue against the current practice of sharing public school funds with privately run charter schools. You could also see that some people may be big proponents of opening school choice, and so you could see somebody arguing the other side that charter schools need these funds as well. You could see that this is a two-sided issue. If you were to write a paper on this topic, you would choose one side or the other. You would not offer a balanced look at the pros and cons of each side of this issue. Once you've decided on your topic, it's time for you to gather your thoughts. A great trick is to make a list of good reasons why you support that particular side of the argument. Just get a piece of paper and just any idea you have, write it down. Don't judge whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, just get it out there. Examine the list and consider the opposing point of view. Why would somebody disagree with these points, and what would his or her response be? So when your audience is looking at one of your main points, what are they going to say in opposition to you? Remember, as you write this paper, you want to constantly be thinking about the other point of view so that you can use logic to try to convince them that the way you see it is correct. And you're also going to want to be thinking about the opposing point of view for your rebuttal section. Finally, do spend some time thinking about your audience. Who are you writing to? What is their background? What influences them? What are their needs and their fears? What part of this issue will concern my opposing audience the most? I would say if one were to write that paper about funding for charter schools, the people who are most interested in that topic are probably educators and parents. So I'd want to consider where they're coming from. What does each group want? What is their motivation? And that's going to be part of my planning and my writing process. The next thing you're going to do is conduct your research. So you've been doing some research in this class, and so this should be familiar to you. You want to find a wide variety of reliable sources that support your stance. You also want to be sure to find some sources on the opposing point of view so you have something to critique in your rebuttal section. As we've learned this semester, reliable sources are academic sources or other published sources with a reputation for fact-checking and accuracy. You don't just want to Google something and use somebody's blog. We want published, vetted sources from publications that have editors. When you find your sources, you want to read them and annotate those sources. The next step is to outline your paper. This may not be your favorite part of the writing process, but it's really important, and it helps you to keep your ideas organized so that you're staying on point, proving your thesis, not wandering off on a tangent. Let's look at a sample outline together. I know this may be a little bit hard to see, but here is a very basic structure for an argument essay. So you see on Roman numeral 1, you'd begin with your introduction paragraph. This is where you would provide background information and necessary context for your topic. And you would also provide a clear thesis presenting the paper's stance on the topic. Now, if you are writing about something that people may not have a lot of personal knowledge about, you may actually want to do that background and context information in a separate paragraph after the introduction. If it's something that you could educate your audience about in just a couple of sentences, briefly summarize the background of the issue, the introduction is a great place for background and context. But remember, that thesis statement needs to be very clear, state which side of the argument the paper will pursue, and that should be the last sentence of the introduction paragraph. In Roman numeral 2, you're going to begin with your first body paragraph. When I write an outline, I start with the topic sentence as the first line of that Roman numeral. And then underneath that, I would list my evidence, my facts, my statistics, my quotes from authority, my logical reasoning. I would list those as A and B and C. And you could do this in Digo. Note that you have here Roman numeral 3, 4, and 5. So in a very simply structured argument essay, these would all be main points that support your argument. One reason why charter schools should not receive public funding is, that would be a body paragraph. Another reason why would be another paragraph. You need at least 3 main point body paragraphs, at least 3. In section 5 here, you see that you may have another 4th and 5th main body paragraph. It depends on the amount of research that you have and how in depth you can go on this topic. But for each main body paragraph, if you're outlining, create a topic sentence and list your evidence that you will use to prove that topic sentence beneath it. In Roman numeral 6, we have present the opposing point of view. Give time to the opposition and just share what their argument is. Give 2 to 3 of their main points of what you found the other side has to say about this issue. And then in paragraph number 7, that's where you pick it apart. They say this, but here's the truth. They say that, but let's examine this authority figure. They say this other thing, but statistics show otherwise. So give a paragraph where after you've given them the stage, you've looked at the opposing point of view, where you pick it apart and discuss why that is not the right answer and the point of view that you are presenting is the, quote, correct point of view. And then, as with every essay, you'll wrap it up with your conclusion. Wrap up your argument, so sum up your main points, drive home the thesis. And as always, strive for a really strong, thought-provoking close to the essay. In that last line, you may want to spend time thinking about the future of this issue, the future implications of this issue, something to get your audience thinking. We're on to step 4. This is where you take that outline and you start fleshing it out into a draft. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, talks about the drafting process. And she says that there's the down draft, the up draft, and the dental draft. So she does 2 what we call rough drafts. The down draft is the draft where you just kind of get it down on paper and you're not worried about how rough some of the sentences may be or whether some of your paragraphs are not developed as well as possible. Sometimes you just got to get it out and get it on the page. And then she talks about the updraft, which is when you go through and you clean it up and you make sure that all your paragraphs are balanced. And if you had a placeholder somewhere, that you remove that placeholder and you put in what you really wanted to say. That's just something to consider. So get your draft done. Remember, as you go through and you're integrating your evidence and your source material, that you need to be sorting your sources, citing your sources, in MLA style. And keep a works cited page as you go. Let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts of writing this paper while you're drafting. Do cite experts who agree with you. Do provide facts, evidence, and statistics to support your position. Do provide reasons to support your claims. Do address the opposing side's argument and refute their claims. Do rely on sound logic to argue your claims. Do use passionate language. This is where your pathos will come in. And do remember to write in the third person point of view. I'm sure some of you have just gone, what? But this is an academic writing class and we stay in the third person point of view. Here's some things to not do. Don't slip into fallacious logic. We have a lesson coming up on fallacies. Some examples of fallacies that you may be familiar with are ad hominem attacks and slippery slope reasoning. Don't use strictly moral or religious claims as support for your argument. Remember, you're writing to a very wide audience, so we want to stick with sources that everybody who's reading the paper accepts as a valid source. Don't assume that the audience will agree with you about any aspect of your argument. So just always be trying to convince people of your point of view. And to reiterate the third person point of view piece, don't use weak qualifiers like I believe, I feel, or I think, or I think. Stick in the third person point of view and just be forceful with your verbiage. Go ahead and just state it. Even if you're kind of on the fence and you're not sure, pretend that you are sure. Be forceful. Those final steps. Once you have your draft, we'll be engaging in peer review. And then once you get that feedback from peer review, you can engage in creating your final draft. This is what Anne Lamott calls the dental draft. So you're making corrections not only to the spelling, the punctuation, grammar, and fluency of your paper, but also the structure and the logic of your argument. And then you will finally submit that paper to your instructor, which is the publishing stage. That said, I'd like to wish you good luck as you write. As always, contact your instructor with any issues or questions that you may have. I'm sure that you can share bits and pieces of your writing, ask for help with direction. Your instructor is there for you, so please use that resource, use your classmates, and have fun with this. Good luck. I'm sure you'll write a great argument essay.